So, I'm going to give you a little bit of update. Last year, I did come on stage and I did introduce Gamma Secure to you. You had the pleasure or displeasure, however you view it, of listening to me, and that was unfortunate because we hadn't completed our acquisition of Satisnet at that point. So we were going to have the SMEs on stage. Unfortunately, you had to have me, but we did manage to stand up and tell you some of the great things that we were going to be releasing around our security portfolio, around our managed SOC, around all of these great things, our managed firewalls, our SASE propositions, and all of this was going to be powered from the magic of Satisnet. So great to have them on board and have that complete. And since then, what we've done is we've taken a long time, and I've been working closely with the team now over the last few months to come up and really get to the bottom of what are the problems our customers are even facing in the first place. Because I don't come from a cyber background, which made it really easy for me to ask all the dumb questions. Now, some people say there's no dumb questions. I get that, but it was the obvious ones. When Bernie was talking about the why. Now, when we spoke to all of our customers to really get an insight and feedback, and that's used and more, they all said very similar things. There was a good similar pattern going on here, and that was a case of we've bought lots and lots of cyber estate. It's grown, but we're not really sure how secure we are. Yeah? I'm not sure I'm getting value for money out of that. I don't have the budget or the headcount to actually manage and operate the cyber estate. And when I do have the budget, I can't find anyone. These skills are in short supply. It's a highly technical role. Our customers need us to show how secure we are before they will do business with us. So in short, we have to be secure and show that we have a good security posture to continue to trade. Simple, huh? And then the last thing that they all said, which was interesting, is that although our people are our biggest asset and are so valuable to us, they're also our biggest vulnerability. They are a great way in for attackers through scamming, credential stealing, etc. So what was actually quite surprising was none of that. I'm pretty sure you're all probably sitting thinking, yeah, that's quite obvious. We have those challenges. But it was the things they didn't say and they didn't ask us about. They weren't asking us for a comparison of firewall technologies, for protecting against zero-day threats. They didn't ask us any of those things. It was just all about how can we make sure we can demonstrate to our customers that we have a robust security posture and we're secure. We've got a lack of available skill sets that we really, really need to fill, and we need to optimize our costs. That was it. Non-technical challenges, right? Very strange. So AJ from the Satisnet team, he actually pointed me in the direction of some research papers. It was a report from 2015 from HP, their cyber report. Now, I was reading this, and I was recognizing the language that was being used when we were going through the acquisition of a cyber organization. There's no silver bullet. Assume breach. All of these were terminologies that were getting used back in 2015. That's nearly a decade ago. That's a long time. At that point, major source of breaches was through vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities and misconfigurations in systems. That's a bit strange as well. Almost all the attacks that were happening were through patchable scenarios that had been known for 2 to 4 years in advance. So I kept thinking and racking my brain that, well, that must just be a system problem then. But as we roll on nearly a decade later, and we read some of these reports, we're still faced with the same challenges, the same talk tracks, the same quick fixes. And I just kept going back to this, and this is it was really interesting hearing Bernie say, don't stop at the first why, because I couldn't. I was like, well, why? Why is this? And we dug a bit deeper. Well, if that's just a technology problem, surely we just implement a patch cycle, right? And then we move on. But it didn't quite work like that. What did help me build a picture here, though, was having a look at this. Now, I don't know if you can see it in the back there. I know it's quite small to see. But this rainbow of logos and bits and bobs is a typical security estate. And what we've done over time is we have acquired point solutions that do something very, very specific. We've done that to solve a need and a problem, and as a new threat vector appears, we buy another solution and we bolt it on, and these estates have grown organically. Now, the average size of a security team for an enterprise is between 3 and 8 people. Now, you may have more, you may have less, but that's the stats. Now, for 3 to 8 people to manage and maintain an ecosystem that looks like this, across a very technical and niche skill set, the picture starts to emerge for me that, well, actually, the security estate, your entire environment, is not being thought of as a whole, and it has grown piecemeal, and it has grown organically. And there's probably only 1 or 2 people in your entire organization that know why you bought some of these things and what the intended purpose was. And when you start to draw it out like this and see all the crossover and validation, it's an interesting concept, especially when you go back to, well, most of the issues are happening because of known vulnerabilities and an inconsistent configuration in the estate. And then you've got a lack of skill sets to actually maintain it. And it kind of starts to paint a picture of this inevitability, in my mind anyway, in my opinion. And what I look at as well, if the problem is misconfiguration and consistency, we've got duplication and triplication across the estate, we've got specialist point solutions that don't work coherently with each other, and we have to patch and wrap it all around with the compensating controls, surely we should look at consolidation. Consolidate the tool sets across a vendor set where it makes sense and where you can, and it doesn't fix the problem, but it goes a long way. And actually now we're starting to see some very big organizations in this space do the same and take the same approach. Very recently, after I had written this, by the way, which was quite interesting, AWS have announced, so AWS, quite a small organization, they've announced that they are removing every single security vendor from their stack, bar one. They're replacing everything they do with one single vendor, and they're doing it to provide consistency of configuration. I mean, greatness. Not only that, Palo Alto, I found out today, have just gone and bought this company called QRadar. That might mean nothing to most of you there, and some people who are in the know will know who they are. Palo Alto they are one of the best and leading providers of firewall solutions. Good, great point solution there. And they're expanded into SD-WAN and Prisma and XDR. This is now going to allow them to start expanding their own platform so that they can become that platform provider. But when we look at our estate and our customers, we noticed all of these logos were quite similar. And actually, we've got 2 strategic partners already today that cover almost the entire estate. And they actually complement each other quite well. And now, showing this to some security teams, they may actually have an absolute meltdown. I'm not going to lie, because we are used to being specialist, niche, point solutions. There's only a few forward-looking and thinking people that will be thinking in this manner and actually taking it with the actual balance that it's meant with. Now, we're not recommending on this stage, and I'm not recommending to any of you today, that you should rip everything out of your environment and just put in Cisco and Microsoft. That's not the intent. The intent is, if we simplify and provide consistency of configuration across your estate, then hopefully that will allow you to put the correct compensating controls in place to at least allow you a more secure environment. Now, the reason we wouldn't actually go and recommend this right now is because we don't know your estate. We could only know your estate by coming in and taking a baseline. It is something that we do. It's called a gap analysis. I'm sure you've heard it from the secure guys upstairs. And this is where we actually will audit all of the purchases in your estate to see where you have crossover and overlap, and also your controls as well, because the technology without the controls is a bit meaningless and useless. It's surplus, really. So we could do that, and we can help it. And even if you don't engage ourselves, I would just say, if you feel you're in this environment where you're not sure what your security estate looks like and you don't have confidence in it, first thing you should do is baseline, just so you can know how to actually move that that duplication and cost optimization. So what are we doing about it as Gamma? Well, we can't do everything. We do have over 90 security vendors and solutions in our portfolio that you can buy a license for, and we continue to offer that. So if you do want to make those transactions, of course you could, but we are focusing in on what we are delivering and what we're building and what we're going to help organizations do. And for our Microsoft customers, we're going to help maximize their licensing estate. So that means that we are going to help come in and actually take the security suite, Defender, Sentinel, and actually turn them on and actually maximize your investment there. Not only that, if you don't have those estates and also in your network environment for our Cisco customers, we're going to help you secure your mobile phones, cloud. We're going to help you secure your cloud and your network and your apps as well where applicable. So that's going to be us for the next 12 to 24 months in terms of where we're going to be adding value and where we can help. Now that might not be applicable to you, and that's okay. And you know, even if you still wanted to do a gap analysis, that's all right. But the thing is that hopefully what you want to take away from today is that these mixed estates, they have their place and they have their niches, but it's not for everyone. Now, putting these configurations in place and the controls, unfortunately, the 10-year-old adjective there does not go away. You should still assume breach. You still need to be prepared if someone does get through and take the right corrective actions using a SOC. And you should also validate those configurations. Your estate is an ever-changing one. The second you add in a new application or create a new configuration, you may have inadvertently opened up a gap. So that's to validate that. Now, these are all technical stuff to a degree in terms of just a different lens, simplifying it, but still one of the biggest threat vectors is your people. We're all people, and we're all going to be tricked at some point in our life. Fool me once, fool me twice. That's a saying for a reason, right? People get fooled, and there's some very convincing scams out there. I mean, you can get, with the advent of AI, ransomware attacks, for example, they are there as a service. You don't even have to be a coder these days to be a hacker. You can just go online and buy the toolkit that tells you with a step-by-step instruction on how to use it. You just need to be very convincing about the way you speak and adapt it. So it's very interesting. So the one thing that I don't think you can patch here, and you can't probably buy a technology for, is your people. However, you can help them prepare through things like user awareness training. No befores upstairs. They're one of many vendors that you could use, and you can actually help dip into how could you possibly secure and train all of the people in your environment. Now, you've probably heard me ramble on about this long enough, but I'm very fortunate today to have on stage with me Amy Lemberger. So we're going to invite Amy up just now, who's our Group Security Director, to have a couple of Q&A about some topics and give us her unique perspective on things. Welcome, Amy. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to get comfy. I'm a bit of an old man these days, so I'll put my fake glasses on as well. Oh, there we go. Amy.
Hi.
Hi. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in security? Because I know you've got quite a lengthy one. And then also modern day to current day, what's your duties entail at Gamma?
Okay, so I've been in security for about 15 years, so I'm old hat now. Back before it was really called cyber, and I worked my way up through the technical route, so I focused in on managing SOCs, understanding security capabilities, developing incident response. My main focus has been telecommunications and communications in general. And I joined Gamma probably about 4 years ago as their first security director.
Great. And what do you do at Gamma as a security director?
Everything. So, yeah, so we do, my area does the security engineering, security architecture, security ops. We do cyber hygiene, the governance, the checks and balances. We make sure it all works.
Brilliant. And from your perspective, how important is it to Gamma that we can actually demonstrate that we have a secure posture to our customers, and what's the consequences of us getting it wrong?
Okay, so there's lots of talk about supply chain risk. Really, Gamma is the supply chain risk, providing the services we do. And you guys set some pretty hefty expectations of us to be able to prove that we do security well through contracts, public sector frameworks, all sorts of expectations like that. And if we don't demonstrate it, we don't really have the right to trade. And in a B2B market, that's vital. So I suppose the consequences of getting it wrong are not being relevant and not being able to trade.
Crazy. And I think I've actually spoken to a few of our customers as well, and I know that you're in the same boat, that this is just one of these things that if it does go wrong, then it could be catastrophic, not just from a data leak perspective or a fine, but this is a trading issue, so this is big, and so I get the risk and relevance of it then. Okay, so you've heard us just speak about the mixed vendor estate, and I know you have a view on this one, and the complexities that bring and how difficult they are to manage. So what's been your approach to consolidation where you can, and also managing that complexity?
So we have some point solutions, but I stand by they're needed in certain places for certain types of companies.
Yep.
So we're a telecommunications company, so we run a massive network, and we have lots of different technologies, and we have lots of different things we're needing to run. We're also on a bit of an acquisition spree over the last few years. So the complexity comes from having lots of different things, plugging into lots of different things, and the ability to change is not as easily and rapid when you work in telecommunications, because we don't want to impact you guys. So when I started about 4 years ago, I did start to consolidate our security tooling. So we've moved to a single SIEM. When we do acquire a company, I've got quite a solid first 100-day plan where we'll do a security review of them and try our best to bring them into our core tool set.
Yep.
And into our monitoring program. It's not easy, so I do recognise that people will be sat in the audience thinking, that would be lovely, 2 vendors. I don't have 2 vendors, and I don't think I will have in any near future, if I'm completely honest. No,
I don't think so either, and this is the point, isn't it? It's the right course of action for the right environment.
Yeah.
We when we discussed on the call, I used the terrible analogy of a car.
No, it's a good analogy, but it's very simplistic, but it works.
Yeah, we'll share with the crowd. So I mean, in terms of cars, there's obviously the thing that sticks in my mind is on a Top Gear episode when I was younger, they pulled out this Toyota Hilux, and it was custom made for mountain rescue, and it was so cool. They were putting the tires back on, and it was very specific to that requirement about doing, I think it was mountain rescue or something, wasn't it? And I guess that is probably where you would have a point solution, multi-million-pound, very expensive, must have. But when we discussed it, you said that a lot of people are actually buying these things when a Ford Focus would do the job. And I thought, well, okay, that's a language I can understand. So, but obviously we have some scenarios in the industry we are at. I mean, we're a critical network supplier, aren't we? So being part of the critical national infrastructure, I guess that means that we need some specialist equipment to do the job right.
Yeah, and very often it's the scale. So what doesn't work is when you have point solutions in a very small network that doesn't really need them. Yeah. But if you think about the scale of what we're covering and the estate, point solutions that scale really well work beautifully, but very often they're not needed, you're right.
Yeah, great. So I would probably just say that, if your security team will all probably tell you that you're special, and you are, absolutely. But at the same time, maybe just quiz them on it a little bit harder. So maybe do a baseline. So tooling and skill set. So we talked about the tooling and the skill sets, but that's really only going to take us so far without the proper controls in place. So I think we agree on that one.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I saw an example recently where our people are being targeted through things like phishing and squishing. I mean, have you guys heard of squishing yet? So squishing, the QR codes that we've seen today? People are actually using them, so when you scan, to steal your credentials, take you to some illicit sites, put in your credentials. I mean, it seems so simple, but some of the best scams usually are, aren't they? So there's quite a large proportion of them. And you know what? It's very interesting, because I'm sure we've all had that email from someone out of country telling us that they've won the lottery and they'd like to deposit a large sum into our account. But those were very old attacks, and they're much more realistic these days. In fact, actually, one of the scenarios I shared with you and we discussed was that people are using things like AI and deep fake technology now. And one person from the finance team was on a Zoom call for a Zoom, which is not, okay, not Teams, not WebEx, let's call it a conferencing call, with two of her colleagues, her senior colleagues, and they convinced her to make a transaction and wire them some money to an account that she hadn't actually ever wired to before. And it turns out these colleagues were just scammers using deepfake technology in real time, which I thought was insane. Excuse me. Now, how in the world would you ever put a technology stack in place to protect against that?
You wouldn't.
Okay, what would we do then?
The reality is, when you described that attack to me, I basically said it was a failed financial control, not a security control. So it's a security attack, and they've used technology to enable the attack. But really, the failed control there was the payment shouldn't have been able to be authorized like that. There should have been checks and balances to make sure it could go through properly. So in the same way, there should be checks and balances that actually a phishing email doesn't get to a mailbox. Payments like that, there should be checks and balances to stop that happening.
That's really interesting. So you're saying that some of these things, although they are a security risk in nature, it's not a security problem to fix. It's more a control, and it's up to the individual departments to actually start putting in the right controls.
Yeah, and you have to work as a system.
Okay.
So this is where security can no longer be an island of itself. There's no silos anymore. Security leaders need to be business leaders. They need to be integrating with finance teams, with regulatory teams, with the technology teams, with everyone to really understand what risks are impacting the business, and then what security can help with, but what actually security then needs to lean on other people for.
Oh, brilliant. So it's sorry you missed the CIO debate, but certainly the CIO leaders were saying about becoming that business partner,
yes,
getting integrated, understanding the business problem, bringing technology to the table to fix the problem where you can, and in other areas, come up with more sensible solutions. So although you can give your security team a hard time for maybe all the things they've bought, but please also be cognizant that not everything's their fault. Brilliant. Okay, so in terms of you give us an overview of the criticality of getting security right. So I'm sure then that you have no problem getting the funding for all of our security needs and tools and delivery. But when you do have to make a challenge or raise the funds, how do you go about that?
My CFO's in the room, so I'm never going to admit I've got enough budget. So I think a lot of what you need to do now as a security leader is build trust and understand the business. So we've said that a couple of times now. The reason I think we're in a lot of the problems we're in with these point solutions is that historically, security people have been allowed to, jump up and down when they've had an incident and buy something for that incident. I think now the expectation is that you work with the business and understand kind of exactly what's going on, and then use that to build the trust and show that you understand enough what's going on, not just internally, but in the markets. And then talk a business language. So there is no point talking to a finance person and taking a business case in that says, I need to buy this shiny thing over here. You need to go in and explain how the return on control is going to work. You need to explain how the threats are going to be reduced. You need to understand how it's going to be, transparent to the user. There's lots of different things you would talk about now that actually have nothing to do with technology.
Brilliant. And do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the team today?
Careful how much you blame users for being the risk. So Bernie touched on it in her presentation, is that the briefing and the debriefing and the transparency and working together, you need the people who are working for you and with you to feel confident and comfortable enough to say, I've made a mistake, I've misconfigured this, there is a problem over here, I've seen this. If you don't have a culture where that is allowed, and you don't have a culture where that is enabled, you won't get told things. There is only so much your tools can do for you Your people can be your greatest asset as well as your greatest risk, but you need to give them the channel to talk to you. So my security team are always available to anyone. I am available on Teams to anyone to ask any question, however daft it might be, and we make sure that we never treat people like they're the problem.
Brilliant.
Also, look at the systems in which you've got people working. So Bernie again touched on it. It's that if phishing emails are reaching the mailbox, why? If people are clicking on links, why? Don't assume it's because they're not getting trained or they're stupid or this, that, and the other. So yes, user awareness training is vital. How much are you actually investing in it? How much does it mean to you? Or is it an hour a year where you're doing a CBT?
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's been really insightful, actually, and I think certainly when we've been speaking about this over the last few days, I've taken a lot from it as well, that it is not tooling, it's not all skill sets, it's not just as black and white as controls and everything falls down to the security department. It's about actually working with the teams together to actually get the right outcomes. So, I think it's been really great today. Okay, thank you very much. We're probably just running up now to the end of the time. And we've not been talking about AI, but there is something on my mind. We are on the dawn of humanoid robotics going mass production. You may have seen these, you may have not, but that's Tesla are going to mass production with their robotics. This is Boston Dynamics. I don't know if you ever saw their robot Atlas. They've retired that now. This is a replacement. We were going to play the video of it, but it was just too scary for me. It's terrifying seeing this thing stand up and walk away. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that the consequence of a cyber attack now is damning enough. But what's going to happen when these things are in our homes and in our workplace and they're compromised? So I think it's a very, very interesting one just to keep front of mind as this next multi-billion-dollar market emerges. So, okay, so the one thing that we do talk to our customers about and yourselves when we're talking about security is actually it's very important to get it right. However, the thing that always comes back through again and again and again is, but what's your support like? What's the service like? The tooling is only one part of it. And we've had some feedback from our customers, which is invaluable to us, that sometimes we're not getting it right. And we take all that and we're building on it and we're building it into our processes. So it's really super important for us that we get that customer service right.